Our story begins with a conversation between a girl and someone she accuses of bringing her into the world without love. She expresses her confusion, unable to understand why this person would do so. It soon becomes clear that the girl is speaking to her father. She pleads for him to wait for her, but he coldly tells her to stay away. The girl laments that no one has ever seen anything good in her. She believes everyone only sees her with disgust and hatred, calling her a monster. As she reflects on this, we see three men chasing her, convinced that her blood is the cure for something, and they are determined to capture her, whether alive or dead. To them, she is not human. As the girl runs, she trips on a rock and falls. In her despair, she thinks about how the only person who truly loved her was her mother. A memory resurfaces. The girl, as a child, clings to her mother's dress, tearfully telling her that everyone hates her, even her father refuses to hug her. She recalls that her mother was the only one who loved and understood her. But the girl also believes she caused her mother's death. She remembers asking her mother for a hug, only for her mother to reply that things would have been better if she had been born human. Right after saying this, her mother collapsed. This moment turns out to be part of a dream, blending painful memories with fantasy. Our protagonist, Meredith, wakes up outside a city, next to a chest of jewelry marked with the word Ususnola. As she regains her senses, she wonders if what she dreamt was real but quickly realizes she can't fully remember the dream. Meredith, a strikingly beautiful girl with large eyes, has been traveling for a month and is relieved to see she's almost reached the city. She mentions having sealed away parts of her memory, but the one thing she hasn't forgotten is her goal: to reach the city and become human. As she greedily grabs for more jewelry, she grins, thinking the more she takes, the better off she'll be. Lost in thought, she almost misses the sounds around her. But suddenly, a noise catches her attention, the very sound that had woken her earlier. Looking up, she sees a young man fighting off monsters. Worried for him, she wonders aloud who thought it was a good idea to send a knight into such dangerous territory. Intriguingly, she notes that the boy looks delicious, but quickly reminds herself that humans shouldn't be eaten. She continues to watch the boy battle the monsters. He, meanwhile, devises a plan, thinking that using his trump card will lure the creatures in. They are mid-level monsters, after all, and he plans to finish them in one blow. But as he prepares to strike, one of the monsters nearly kills him. Terrified, Meredith realizes he's in danger of dying if she doesn't intervene. The boy, sensing the imminent attack, feels a deep sense of dread and cries out for help. In that moment, Meredith contemplates using her magic to save him. She suddenly remembers that she has wings, something she had somehow forgotten. But there's a catch: after using magic 5 times, she will no longer remain human. Despite this, she resolves to act. Unfortunately, her magic inadvertently leads to the young man's death. Saddened by the outcome, Meredith briefly mourns, but her grief is short-lived. With surprising ease, she decides to bury the boy on the spot, nonchalantly hoping that come spring, he might grow into a tree. The main character, Meredith, gives off an odd impression at first glance, seeming carefree, as if nothing really affects her. She doesn't even grasp the gravity of death, treating it as a mere trifle. Meredith gazes at the guy she thought had died, finding him oddly appetizing. Completely absorbed in her admiration, she doesn't notice when he opens his eyes. The guy, still disoriented, can't quite figure out who she is. As Meredith begins tossing dirt onto him, trying to bury him, he suddenly stands up, coughing and covered in filth. Despite his best efforts to keep his uniform clean earlier, now he's filthy, and to make matters worse, this strange girl is throwing dirt on him. Meredith, surprised and smiling, innocently asks if he wasn't dead. The guy, irritated and arrogant, retorts that of course he wasn't dead and demands to know who she is and what she's doing in monster territory. Meredith, overjoyed that he's alive, looks directly into his eyes, delighted to meet him. She introduces herself, saying her name is Meredith, and that he's the first person she's met. But as the boy listens, he catches sight of her wings. Alarmed, he pushes her away and accuses her of not being human. He glares at her with suspicion, but Meredith, still smiling sweetly, admits that he's right, she's not human. However, she adds that she's on a journey to the city to become human. The young man is shocked by her statement, falling silent and just staring at her. Meredith, perplexed by his silence, wonders if perhaps he's a bit slow-witted. Growing frustrated, she thinks to herself that she doesn't know how to handle talking to someone stupid, yet at the same time, she battles the temptation to eat him. After a moment of awkward silence, the knight finally speaks up, asking if she truly wishes to become human. Meredith confirms that it's indeed her greatest desire. Relieved that he can talk, she listens as the knight introduces himself as Leon, a knight, and offers to help her become human. He extends his hand to her, and she eagerly accepts his offer. The story shifts to the bustling border town of Bullied, where the marketplace is lively with vendors calling out to potential buyers. One seller tries to entice people with baked sweet potatoes, boasting about their sweetness. Another promotes a special deal, offering goods for just 5 copper coins. A third vendor advertises magical defenses, claiming they'll protect people from monster attacks. Amidst all this, Meredith wanders through the market, marveling at the idea of a human city, while Leon is frantically searching for her. As Leon searches, one of his subordinates informs him that they've found Meredith. Meanwhile, our heroine tries human food for the first time, but finds it repulsive, vomiting in disgust. She loudly declares that human food is awful, which infuriates the food vendor. Just as tensions rise, Leon finds her and suggests she start acting more like a human if she's serious about blending in. Her eyes light up with excitement at the idea, and she enthusiastically agrees, saying it sounds easy. However, Leon watches her with growing concern. He begins to realize how careless he was to promise that he could help her in a human city. He knows it will be much harder than she anticipates. Shortly after, Leon confronts the sweet potato vendor who had mistreated Meredith, beating him up in a fit of rage. The vendor, terrified, feels like he's on the brink of death as Leon moves on without a second thought. Another merchant tries to sell Meredith a weapon, showing off a shield made from the scales of a mangsta monster. He assumes Meredith must be an expert, given that she wears demonic wings like an accessory. But as he praises the shield's strength, Meredith casually breaks it with ease, giving an innocent look as if she didn't know her own strength. The salesman is left in shock, unable to fathom how she could destroy something so sturdy. Unfazed, Meredith runs off, leaving Leon struggling to keep up with her. Exhausted and worn out, Leon finds it increasingly difficult to chase after her. Meanwhile, Meredith's boundless energy propels her toward a new stall, where she grabs a bottle of medicine from an older woman. The woman was indignant. How could this strange girl just take her medicine without asking? But before things could escalate further, Leon finally caught up with Meredith. He grabbed her from behind, and the momentum caused them both to tumble to the ground. As they landed, they found themselves face to face, their eyes locked in an awkward gaze. Leon blushed slightly, feeling embarrassed. In that moment, he realized that Meredith wasn't even trying to hide from him, she was simply running far too fast for him to catch up. Meredith, unfazed by their fall, helped Leon to his feet, commenting that humans seemed fragile. She asked if he was okay, her tone almost casual, while Leon, flustered and feeling awkward, warned her that she might get into trouble for her actions. However, by this point, a crowd had already gathered, and they were laughing at the scene. A man named Warren Howard, a baron and lord of the border city, couldn't contain his amusement. Laughing heartily, he called out to Leon, saying that he was about to die of laughter. Baron Howard mockingly teased Leon, asking if he was chasing after a beautiful woman, and remarked that such behavior was a disgrace to nobility. Meredith, noticing the Baron, darted toward him and, in a playful gesture, snatched his hat from his head, exclaiming that it was a treasure. The moment she did, the Baron's fake hair fell off, leaving him exposed to even more laughter from the crowd. The situation became even funnier, as it was none other than Baron Howard, a man of considerable status, now humiliated in front of everyone. Furious, the Baron angrily called Meredith a creature and raised his hand to strike her. Just as Howard was about to hit her, Leon rushed forward, apologizing on Meredith's behalf. Despite Leon's apology, the Baron's anger didn't subside. Meredith, seemingly oblivious to the tension, hugged Leon like a child, commenting that he smelled nice. Leon, feeling both disgusted and awkward, told her to stop hugging him, especially since she was holding that dirty hat. He sighed, telling her she needed to calm down as he prepared to deal with the mess she had created. Baron Howard, his anger slightly tempered but still evident, asked Leon who this girl was. He commented that she seemed very cheerful, though Leon barely registered the remark. Instead, he lifted Meredith into his arms, reasoning that if he didn't carry her, she would just run off again and cause more trouble. He then instructed the Baron to find out where Meredith had come from, stressing that he needed to know if she was local or not. The Baron, still simmering with frustration, agreed, though he grumbled that if such a striking girl lived in the city, he would have already known about her. Leon, without further comment, began walking away, muttering to himself that he needed a bath and a change of clothes. Carrying Meredith in his arms, he headed toward the Howard mansion. As they walked, the Baron called out to Leon, asking where he planned to go. Leon, addressing him as Sir, sarcastically suggested that since the Baron was so hospitable, surely he wouldn't mind if both he and Meredith stayed at his mansion. Baron Howard, forced to maintain his composure, smiled tightly and agreed, though inwardly he was seething. He muttered to himself that if it weren't for the fact that Leon was sent from the imperial capital, he would never have accepted such a request. Meanwhile, as Leon carried her, Meredith happily remarked that she loved being hugged. Leon, however, ignored her and simply told her to stop flapping her wings, complaining that they were obstructing his view. When they finally arrived at the Howard mansion, the servants greeted Leon warmly, saying, "Welcome home, Sir Leon." However, they were all taken aback when they noticed Meredith's wings. One of the servants, puzzled, asked if the wings were real. Before Leon could answer, Meredith, clearly offended, indignantly proclaimed that her wings were real, speaking in the third person and saying, "Meredith's wings are real." Leon, with a smirk, didn't deny her statement but instead mockingly played along, confirming that yes, the wings were indeed real, all while teasing her with a hint of sarcasm. Leon knew full well that Meredith's wings were real, but he didn't want to reveal this to the servants, thinking they wouldn't understand. As he prepared to leave, he instructed the staff to look after Meredith, warning them with a smirk that the girl's head is a little wrong. The servants were baffled, unsure what to make of such a strange comment. Meanwhile, Leon was already in the bathroom, eager to relax in a hot bath after a long and exhausting day. He thought it would be fine as long as the servants kept an eye on the troublemaker. Leon undressed, ready to unwind, but his peace was short-lived. Suddenly, Meredith burst into the bathroom without a second thought. Leon was both shocked and furious, demanding to know why she had invaded his personal space. "What are you doing in my bathroom?" he yelled. Meredith, however, seemed completely unfazed. In her usual childlike manner, she asked when he was going to teach her how to behave like humans. Leon, incredulous, shouted back, "Can't you see I'm taking a bath?" But Meredith didn't seem to care or even understand why it was an issue. She stood there, completely unbothered, acting as if barging into someone's private bath was the most natural thing in the world. Leon, frustrated, had hoped to be alone, but Meredith showed no sign of leaving. Instead, she moved closer to him, repeating her question, "When are you going to teach me?" Desperate, Leon asked, "Why are you still here? Don't you have any sense of shame?" But it became clear that Meredith didn't even know what shame was. Leon started to explain that normal people don't barge into a bathroom when someone else is bathing, but Meredith just nodded and agreed, though without actually understanding his point. Leon, baffled, asked her why she wasn't leaving then if she understood. Meredith, confused, asked why she should turn away while he was changing. Leon groaned and explained, "Because men and women are different. It's just something you do." But Meredith, like a curious child, asked, "Why are they different? Why should I turn away?" Exasperated, Leon clamped his hand over her mouth and told her, "All you need to know is that showering and changing clothes is something people do alone." Inwardly, Leon thought to himself how much of a pain she was. Meredith smiled at him, as if she had learned something important, and sweetly told him she would remember to take baths and change her clothes alone. She smiled innocently and held his hand, still resembling a little child in both her mannerisms and speech. Finally, Leon guided her toward the door, reminding her that people usually sleep at night and that she should go to bed. He promised to teach her more tomorrow, hoping that would get her to leave. Meanwhile, Lord Warren Howard, who had been tasked with investigating Meredith's origins, reported back to Leon. He informed Leon that he had compared the girl's appearance with portraits of other missing girls, but none of them matched Meredith. Leon asked if Howard had checked for other disappearances besides those girls, but the Lord confirmed he had investigated all possibilities, and there were still no matches. This left Leon puzzled. Where had this mysterious girl come from? The investigation had revealed a troubling trend recently. More and more girls had been disappearing from the city of Badal. One heartbroken woman was in tears, unable to comprehend how her daughter had vanished. So far, 18 girls had gone missing. Badal, being near the demon forest, often saw small demons sneaking into the city. About 80% of these demons were known to be perverse creatures who preyed on humans. One man even claimed to have seen demons himself and speculated that perhaps one of them was responsible for kidnapping the girls. However, most people in the city didn't believe that a demon was behind the disappearances. Despite this, the strange rumors circulating around Badal had caught the attention of the royal family, prompting Her Majesty to send Leon to investigate the case. His task was clear: find out what or who was behind the growing number of missing girls. Meredith, having claimed she wasn't human and possessing strange wings, had piqued Leon's curiosity. He speculated about her unusual nature, wondering whether she really had the instincts to eat people. As Leon prepared to leave Lord Howard's office, he informed him that he would take the portraits of the missing girls to ensure Meredith didn't resemble any of them. With a somber look, Leon bid the Lord goodbye and left, deep in thought. Upon entering his room, Leon's frustration flared when he saw Meredith sitting on his bed. Her face lit up with happiness at his return, but Leon, visibly irritated, demanded to know why she was in his room. He thought to himself how the maids couldn't even keep track of her. Smiling innocently, Meredith replied that she was in his room because she could smell him there. Leon, puzzled, thought she was like a puppy, wondering how on earth she had such a keen sense of smell. Meredith's behavior grew more suspicious as she mentioned she couldn't leave without her treasure. Leon, somewhat curious, asked where her treasure was, and she sheepishly admitted she had left it in the woods. With a sigh, Leon handed her his sword, telling her she could borrow it but warning her not to break it. Meredith, however, didn't seem too pleased. Looking at Leon with teary eyes, she told him that she wouldn't be able to sleep with just the sword. Unmoved by her tears, Leon told her to stop acting like a damsel in distress, saying he wasn't interested in her sob story. Yet, unable to fully resist her, he gave her a handful of precious stones to keep her quiet. Meredith's face lit up, thrilled to finally have her treasure. After handing over the stones, Leon told her it was time to sleep, but Meredith, looking worried, said it was too noisy. Confused, Leon asked what she meant, since the room was silent to him. Meredith insisted that it was still noisy, but Leon, dismissive, suggested she cover her ears with a pillow. She tried but quickly shouted that she could still hear. Meredith told Leon that she overheard a man telling another that he was going to eat him. Disturbed by this, she asked Leon if humans ate each other. Leon stared at her like she was crazy. She tried to ask something else, but before she could finish, Leon clapped his hands over her ears and shouted for her to stop listening to everything. Meredith protested, saying now she couldn't hear anything, and Leon dryly asked if she really expected him to hold her ears all night. She gazed at him with puppy dog eyes, as if asking him to do exactly that. Eventually, Leon gave in, lying down next to her and grumbling that he wouldn't do this again. Meredith, comforted, closed her eyes and tried to sleep. As she drifted off, she thought about how warm Leon's hands felt, like a clinging animal's. It was oddly pleasant to be lying next to him. At one point, Meredith opened her eyes, finding their faces just inches apart. There was clear embarrassment on Leon's face, but something else too, a strange tension, as if they were being drawn toward each other. Meredith, her cheeks flushed, seemed like she wanted to say something. She hesitated, then asked if he could do something, though she didn't finish the sentence. Leon's mind immediately jumped to the worst possible conclusion. For a moment, Leon's thoughts raced, thinking she was about to ask for a kiss. But then Meredith clarified, asking if he could squeeze her ears a little tighter. Relieved, and a little embarrassed by his assumptions, Leon obliged, telling her to go to sleep soon. As he held her ears, he thought to himself that his thoughts had been crazy. He couldn't even understand why he had been thinking what he was. It was clear by now that this strange girl was already making his head spin. As Leon drifted off to sleep, Meredith peeked through her half-closed eyes. She thought about how Leon wasn't like other people. She liked the way he smelled, delicious and warm, in a way she couldn't quite explain. It was clear that she was growing increasingly fond of that feeling. Morning came, and Meredith finally woke up, disoriented by the noise around her. She climbed down from the bed and made her way to the door, where a servant was waiting for her. Meredith, still half asleep, asked where Leon had gone, as he was no longer in the room. The servant explained that Mr. Leon had gone out on business and politely asked her to wait for his return. Just then, an arrogant man appeared, his demeanor commanding attention. Vincent asked the maid, "Since when has such a beautiful girl been at the mansion?" It was then that we learned the man's name was Vincent Howard. The maid informed him that his lordship had instructed not to touch the man Mr. Leon had brought, based on his earlier reaction. From this, it became clear that Vincent didn't like Leon at all. He approached Meredith and gently touched her face, trying to say something, but she didn't appreciate it. Angry, she grabbed his hand and yelled at him. In his confusion, Vincent asked her what she was doing holding his hand. At that moment, Meredith realized she was starving and had nearly eaten someone. Vincent, amused, offered to take her to a nice restaurant and promised, with a smile, that she'd be fed. Suddenly, Meredith smelled something and started running, leaving Vincent wondering where she was going. She ran so fast that he couldn't keep up. It turned out that she had seen a monster and tried to stop it, telling the creature she'd eat it in one bite and reassuring it that it wouldn't hurt. Vincent was terrified since the monster was actually his pet. He yelled at Meredith, calling her a demon and demanding she let go of his pet. Acting childishly, Meredith claimed the monster was meant for her. Just then, Leon appeared in the doorway, asking Meredith what she was doing. The most furious one, however, was the Lord, who, with a horrified expression, asked what they had done to his mansion. Leon told Meredith that she'd better provide a reasonable explanation for everything that had happened. Like a child, Meredith simply said she was hungry and pointed out that Leon had something tasty in his bag. Leon opened it, revealing crystal kernels, and warned her not to eat them. But Meredith took one and began to eat it anyway. Leon stared at her in disbelief, wondering how she managed to eat it. He found it astonishing because only mid- and high-level demons use crystal nuclei to transform their bodies after special processing, making the cores valuable sources of energy. Meredith began calculating the value of what she ate, mentioning silver coins worth 500, 1,000, and gold coins worth 100. Leon explained that even the weakest core was worth 500 silver coins and that she had quite the appetite for expensive things. He then tried to teach her a lesson, explaining that even though she was hungry, she shouldn't damage other people's property. He asked how she would feel if her treasures were destroyed. Meredith's face turned to one of horror as she imagined the scenario. Leon went on to explain that people's homes are their treasures. Still puzzled, Meredith asked what she should do now. Leon advised her to apologize. Meredith handed the Lord a rare crystal, apologizing for breaking his treasure. The Lord's eyes lit up upon seeing the stone, shocked to find that it was a black dragon crystal. As this exchange happened, Leon marveled at how magic cores, though valuable, were not rare, while dragon crystals were incredibly difficult to find. He wondered how Meredith could possess such a crystal. Leon gently wiped something off Meredith's face and asked if she understood that the crystal she had just given to the Baron was worth far more than the mansion itself. Completely unaware of its value, Meredith asked if the small stone was really called a dragon crystal and inquired how much it was worth. Leon explained that it was incredibly valuable and suggested that if she changed her mind about giving it to the Baron, she could always take it back. Smiling, Meredith revealed that she didn't grasp much of what Leon had told her. She remarked that the crystal was black and not as beautiful as the treasures Leon had shown her before, so she didn't mind giving it to the Baron. Leon, baffled by how someone could so easily give away something so precious, looked at her sweetly and asked if she realized that people should listen to their guardians. He then informed her that he was now her guardian. Meredith, accepting his authority, said she would obey Leon from now on. Pleased, Leon told her it was the right decision and suggested that the best course of action was for her to eat in her room and not leave without his permission. Looking at her kindly, he marveled at how surprisingly easy it was to convince this troublemaker. Meanwhile, Meredith sat calmly in her room, munching on precious stones. She thought to herself that, with Leon teaching her, she'd quickly learn how to be human. Lost in her thoughts, Meredith noticed something burning outside the window. She wanted to investigate but remembered Leon's instructions to stay put unless he gave permission. Outside, people were panicking, shouting for water to put out a fire. In that moment, Leon suddenly recalled that Meredith was still in the mansion. He rushed into the burning building and found her, seemingly oblivious to the chaos around her.